I'm so happy to see you all. All right. So, yeah. So here we are for 1 hour to make the most of it, have a little chat, talk about the meaning of life, to see if there's some tools we can use to help us, I don't know, get rid of our ridiculous nonsense and become this marvelous person that's in there somewhere. Okay. What will I talk about? Charmaine, is there a list or is there questions?
There are no questions yet.
What was it? When was it? Was it this one we said we'd talk about purification, or did we do that already?
We did not do that yet, and I would love that. And I did let the people know that starting next month, we're going to try to do a purification at night, a new practice.
That's right. Exactly. Okay, so nighttime for some people, it's UK, midnight in the UK, so it's nighttime for them. Okay, so one way you can describe all of practice. Well, first of all, two things. The actual job of being a Buddhist, okay, start again. I know when I first heard the teachings from Lama Zopa and Rama-Yeshe, and I heard all this arcane Buddhist philosophy and strange medieval stuff and ancient. And then I heard about meditation and practices and all these prayers, and it was utterly confusing. And that's the commonest response to, especially Tibetan Buddhism. It just seems so massive, so much information. But I suppose it's like any body of knowledge. When you walk into a new body of knowledge, of course it's like that. I mean, it's been around for 2,500 years in India. Well, I mean, it died around about the 11th century there pretty much, and it's been alive in Tibet and other countries. So naturally, they set up, they have their own system, their system is there. Ancient history. So it's inevitable you're going to be a bit confused. So much of it, the way it's presented, is presented for people who are inside the system. It makes sense, So we've got to try and unpack that. And I mean, it just takes a while. So the thing is, once we realize that the actual practice of being a Buddhist. There's a nice story about Atisha. I think it's Atisha, that amazing 11th century yogi scholar, Indian, who went to Tibet and spent the last 15, 20 years of his life there, something like that. Some story like some fellow comes up and says, oh, I just did my practice. I walked around the stupa. He said, I'm very happy. I hope you practice Dharma. Then he said, oh, all right. So then he came back and he said, well, I just did my prostrations. And then Atisha said, well, I hope you practice Dharma. So it kept going like that. Practicing Dharma is the Buddhist way, Tibetan way of saying working on your mind. Because practice is when you start to work on your mind. And that's implied. I mean, I always quote this, but it's important to remember. If we look at the word Buddha, which is the end result, after all this work of being a Buddhist, you graduate as a Buddhist. That's the end result. That's what you're trying to become. You do a course on music, you become a musician. A course on math, you become a mathematician. Well, a course in Buddhism, you become a Buddha, okay? Bud implies, the etymology is tasty. Bud implies the eradication from your mind of all delusions, all ego, all fears, all anger, jealousy, depression, anxiety, attachment. Really simple. Da implies the development to perfection of everything else in the mind, love, compassion, wisdom. So this tells us instantly exactly what being a Buddhist is. It's almost so simple we miss it. That's what it implies, the methodology, doesn't it? If you want to end up with no delusions and full of virtue and goodness, then it's pretty evident, it's a no-brainer. The job of being a Buddhist is to get rid of your delusions and grow the goodness. That's when you start being a Buddhist. Now, as Rama-Yeshe says, it's like, that's when you begin, he calls it being your own therapist. It sounds very nice. It's like a marketing ploy. It is, but it's true. And it seems extremely simple. We can sigh of relief when we hear that. Oh, I see. That's being a Buddhist, working on my mind. Of course, the trouble is, because Buddha says for eons, we've been ridiculous, doing all the wrong things in our mind. So it's not that easy to do it, but that is the job. Now, then, if you're a Tibetan Buddhist, you'll hear about things like preliminary practices. Well, you think, well, preliminary to what? And this is the point now. That's why I use a simple analogy. If I go up to Roger Federer and I say, oh, I see him play tennis, I get all excited. Oh, can you please show me how to play tennis, Roger? I've never lifted a racket in my life and I'm overweight and got no muscle tone. He says, yes, of course I will, Robina. But first you have to go off and do, a couple of years of this and study tennis philosophy at the university and do jogging and get fit and learn to get and do this and do that and do this and do that. And I'll say, but you didn't hear me, Roger. Can you please tell me how to play tennis? And he'll repeat his answer. Well, going to the university and learning tennis philosophy and learning all the rules and doing lots of jogging and going on a diet and going on nutrition, that's preliminary practices. What's that mean? It's obvious. You're not able, your body is not capable of even beginning to hit a ball yet. You've got to prime your body and your mind, obviously, so that you can go on the court and start executing forehands and backhands. Well, that's exactly the same here. Working on our mind, the words are really simple. Getting rid of all the delusions, growing all the goodness, that's really simple. Those words are like a relief. We should be relieved. But because for eons, Buddha says, we've been practicing, or it's sort of like we've been practicing all the wrong things. We've been practicing anger and attachment and jealousy and believing in a separate me and all the nonsense that comes from this, which is the entirety of samsara. That's all created by our mind. So we've been doing the wrong thing. It's sort of like you've been learning to play tennis for 20 years the completely wrong way. And you wonder why you never win Wimbledon. So you've got to unlearn. And you've got to get your mind primed. So if you've got to go off and do, let's say, a 3-year retreat, people hear about these 3-year tantric retreats, the most advanced teachings in Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism. You go off to the university, postgraduate level, you go and do a retreat on one of the deities, a 3-year retreat. Well, you've got to, in our tradition, the Gelugpas, we've got 9 different preliminary practices that we need to do first to prime our mind, and that will probably take longer than the 3 years. 100,000 in prostrations, 100,000 of this, 100,000 of that, because our minds have to be primed. Our minds are as thick as posts. We're up to completely delusional. To even begin, now look at our lives. We know this is true. The words work on your mind, lessen your anger and grow your kindness. They're really simple advice. Well, try doing it next time your husband looks at you. Try doing it for anybody. Try doing it easily. We can see, we might have been practicing for 45 years and we still can't control our mouth, We can see this. So that just indicates we've been practicing the wrong things for a long time. So you've got to unpractice and you've got to prime your mind to be ready. So when it comes down to it then, you could argue all practices come down to 2 things. One is where you pull out the weeds, and one is where you grow the flowers. The bottom line is you've got to end up with all the flowers grown, the wisdom and the kindness and the love and the compassion, and the weeds of the anger and the jealousy and the depression and the rubbish. They've got to be gone, and the flowers have got to be flourishing. Speaking simply. Well, then it's clear one of the major practices we have to do is start pulling out the weeds. You can't possibly start growing flowers and herbs in a garden that's choked, suffocated by weeds. It's not possible. You've got to do lots of yucky work first. That's the meaning of purification and masses of practices, and this is really big in Tibetan Buddhism. So you could argue all practices have both components, but some are more emphasis on purification, some are more emphasis. So purification is pulling out the weeds, and the other term they use is creating merit. Another way to put that, you could argue, every time you refrain from being angry, that's purification. Every time you actively are kind, that's creating merit. Although both have got both aspects, But there's over the centuries, there are some practices that are most suitable. And of course, being a system that's been around in Tibet for 1,200 years and, developed its own style, then it's very established. One has to learn all these things. It's a brand new world for us, So the very first level of practice, if we take this Lam Rim as our packaging, Lama Tsongkhapa's packaging of Buddha's teachings based on Atisha's little text, Light That Guides You on Your Way, he wrote when he got to Tibet, which is all based on, of course, all the vast body of knowledge that's studied in the great Nalanda monastery system, all the metaphysics and the Buddha and the philosophy and the epistemology and the etymology and all the stuff, So this Lam Rim is a packaging of all of that from a perspective of practice, from experiential point of view. And even that takes time. I know when I first heard Lama Zopa, 1 whole month Lam Rim course, I went every single session. I knew there was something there that I wanted, although I couldn't recognize it immediately. I went to every class. There's 200 people packed in this freezing cold Gompa in Queensland. And I didn't understand 99% of what he said, but I was struggling to. Lama Yeshe would come along and I'd sigh a sigh of relief because he made sense somehow, I didn't have a clue how to put it together. And even when I became a nun and started working for Wisdom Publications, and editing Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand initially, anyway, I didn't finish it, but I initially edited, and I was editing all these words. I still couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't get the big picture, It takes a while. So the very first level of practice is really playing safe. In Buddhism, we think, it's all about love, compassion, blah, blah, blah. Forget that. That's university. Junior school first. Control your body, control your speech, and control your mind. That's junior school. That's the wisdom wing. That's where you put yourself together. And it's not even talking about practicing virtue there so much. It's all about, it's all about refraining from growing more weeds and frantically doing as much as you can to pull out the weeds you've already planted before they grow, or put out the seeds. So the first stages of practice, the first and second scopes of the Lam Rim, junior school and high school, abiding by the laws of karma and knowing your mind. This is all about purification, mostly. It's mostly refraining from harming. It's like playing safe. It's like controlling your body, your speech, and your mind, Then in the compassion wing, you start to get big and grand and brave and courageous and amazing, and start to really create merit. Although all practices do both. So the first entry-level junior school grade 1 practice, as Lama Zopa says, to start this second, if you're talking about Buddhist practice, is you stop harming others. Right there. That's your first practice. Just stop killing. Don't jump on the wrong partner. Don't take everything that doesn't belong to you. Don't harm others, in other words. Don't harm others, in other words. Why not? Because that sows a seed in your mind that'll ripen in the future for you as suffering. And hey, what? I don't want suffering, please. Then the next level of practice, given that my mind goes back and back and back and back and back, Buddha says, given that every millisecond of what I think and do and say has sown seeds in my mind, there must be an awful lot of seeds, baby, that haven't yet ripened. So I better start putting atomic bombs under them before they ripen. That's purification. And as Lama Zopa says, we're insane not to do it every day. And that's based on the logic that every millisecond your mind is existing, which is all the time. It's creating karma. It's doing actions. It's sowing seeds. And every one of those will ripen in the future because we are our own creators. Karma is like self-creation, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, So this is the logic of being a Buddhist teaching, Buddhist worldview. So given that everything I think and do and say sow seeds will ripen as my experiences, and then the next level of detail is given that everything I think and do and say that's labeled negative will ripen as my suffering, and guess what, honey, I don't want suffering. Then it follows logically, entry-level junior school grade 1 practice, control your body, speech, honey, and control your speech. That's it, not even your mind yet. That comes to high school. That's where you begin being a Buddhist, because good ethics, which is abiding by the laws of karma, good ethics, that's common to the world. Communist can be a good person, an ethical person, a Christian, or whoever. So that's not unique to the Buddha. His methods are fairly unique. His logic is unique. His reason for why you should abide by the laws of ethics is unique, because it's not because it's punishment, it's not because he said, because whatever you do produces you. But it's common to everybody. But when you get to the next level, and now you get to the root of the problem, which is your mind. As Lama Zopa says, we've got to now, first level of practice is control the slaves of the mind. You control the servants of your mind, your body and speech, because they're driven by ego grasping, attachment, and all the rest, Of course, love and compassion is there too, no problem about those. So the first level of practice, we're trying to control our body and speech. When you get to high school, middle scope, then you get to the root of the problem. You start to unpack and unravel your mind. That's when you become a Buddhist, because that's unique to Buddha's approach, unique to the Buddha, his specific approach to the mind and how it functions. But so first, entry-level junior school grade 1, control your body and speech, don't kill, don't steal, don't jump on the wrong partner. And then, and why? Because they're actions that harm others. And just because others are involved, it's much more heavy karma for you. He doesn't say don't eat too many pieces of cake, don't drink fire, doesn't say like that. But after a while you can deduce the logic of that, because you're trying to control the servants of your delusions. So at least you stop doing the heaviest ones, which always involve harming others. Then you've got to purify. So given throughout the day every single thing you think and do and say drop seeds into your little bank vault, your mind, they're going to ripen whether you like it or not, unless you pull them out and do something about it. So you better do something about it. So those ones, at least you stop putting more seeds in the bank, negative bank, And then you've got to take care of the ones you've already planted, which haven't yet ripened. And that's purification. So, of course, because it's talked about in these kind of terms, which is not how we think in our psychology, but essentially because Buddha's a psychologist, and that's not a joke, it's a fact, because he deals with the mind. He doesn't talk about a soul. He doesn't posit a third thing. We don't need a third thing called a soul. We've got a mind, a consciousness. So just the way, as far as he's concerned, how it works, like I said, it's driven by the law of karma. Whatever we think and do and say programs our mind. And because we don't want suffering, which is caused by negative actions, that means we better know what a negative action is. It's pretty logical. So an action, karma, action, which uses the body and or the speech, is driven by the mind. So the heavy negative action is one that harms another. It's not the only negative ones. All negative actions harm me, harm us, but some harm others. But all negative, so eating 14 pieces of cake doesn't mind. Cake doesn't have, cake doesn't mind, but that's harming me because that's following attachment, uncontrolled, So then purification then is just another psychological practice. It's just another practice of working on your mind. Of course, we don't think so. It's couched in religious terms. And if you do it properly, you visualize the Buddha and you ring bells and do things like this. You don't have to do it like that. It's a psychological process. And I like to think of it as being kind to yourself. You're becoming your own friend. Because Buddha's not a creator, you bring in Buddha, you use Buddha, you visualize Buddha, you imagine Buddha. Buddha's like your doctor, whose methods you use to purify yourself. But you use Buddha. We need that. But he's not the boss. He doesn't tell us what, he advises us, but he's not, and this is always the crucial difference I like to always make. It's really important, even though we've heard it before, we need to keep hearing it, is that Buddha is not like a creator. When we hear Buddhism, don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, that sounds like Jesus, just the same. And why does Jesus say don't kill? Well, we know why, because God said. And that's, as my Jesuit priest friend said, that's what the definition of a sin is. Doing what God said not to do. So you're going to get punished or rewarded if you're a good girl. That's no view like that in Buddhism. I can't stress this enough, and we have to continually think it, because Buddha is not a creator. He doesn't assert a creator. Therefore, there's no punisher and there's no rewarder. This is a massive difference. We hear it the same, but we shouldn't. It's massively different. The implication of our relationship with the Buddha is completely different than with a relationship with Jesus. In many ways, it's similar. In many ways, devotion, just the same. I mean, I was a Catholic. I was in love with God. I was completely devoted to God. Thought about God all the time. Went to mass 7 mornings a week. But even though I was a naughty girl. But I loved God, but I never thought of him as a creator. I wish I've got some Buddhist connection, Never thought of him as my creator. So the Buddha, our relationship to the Buddha, he's giving us advice, but we choose to take it. And you don't get punished. You don't get rewarded. There's no view like that in Buddhism. You've got to remember that. This is a really big, shocking concept, because we assume that it's like that. We have this dualistic view of punishment and reward. We've made that up. We've made that dualistic view up, So then purification then is it's like you practice, it's like you're being your own friend. I think it's a good way to put it. It's not guilt. It's not neurosis. It's you, the analogy is so simple for me all the time. Buddha is like a doctor. That's how they talk like that. So you want a doctor's advice, but you take the advice, you do the work, you take the medicine, So the nice way to remember this is 4 steps, purification, 4 steps in this process, in this psychological process. The 4 R's. My friend Gloria in Australia, I think she said that. It's helpful to remember. And the first one is regret. And it's, again, remember, important to understand this one. Regret. Dalai Lama was asked one time, what's the difference between guilt and regret? And this is massive. We've got to think about these things, not just say them superficially. Guilt, as His Holiness said, you look in the past and you go, I did this and I did that and I did this. And then you go, and I'm a bad person. Well, we get that. We love that one. We're completely good practitioners of that. But it's a misconception, Buddha says. So as His Holiness said, regret, you look at the first part's the same. You look in the past, I did do this and I did do this and I did do that. And then you conclude, when we have to practice thinking this, what can I do about it? But what's implied by that is exactly the same, like the doctor analogy. You go to your doctor and she says, don't smoke. And you say, why not? She won't say, because I say. Well, because Robina, honey, you're going to get terrible lungs, and she'll show me a video of these hideous lungs, and she's saying, if you don't, that's the result of your actions. Look at the result. So then you go, so you don't go, oh, I smoked, I'm such a bad person, I'm going to get punished. No, you galvanize into action. Go, oh my God, I don't want lungs like that. No way in the world. Quick, please give me the method. That's the view. But that's really hard for us in the West, in our modern world, when it comes to karma, because we hear it exactly like punishment and reward. Exactly. But we don't think it through. There's no punishment, there's no reward. Excuse me, be logical. It takes time though. So then, just like you would never, be neurotic if your doctor says don't smoke, and you mean you're going to punish me with cancer if I do smoke? No, nothing to do with her. She's an advisor. Buddha's the same, but we hear it the other way. So that's why we have guilt. I'm a bad person. I'm going to get punished. I'm going to get found out. I mean, it's like childish. Guilt is no sense of responsibility whatsoever. It's paralyzed. So this responsibility, like when you've discovered, all the lamas always use the analogy of smoking is one, eating poison is another. The second you hear there's poison in your dinner, oh my God, I can't believe it. What an idiot, I've eaten poison. Then you say, quick, what can I do? It's logical. Action has to come. What's the action? That's the action. But we don't have that when it comes to negativity, because we're so used to the dualistic view of being punished and rewarded, and somebody said I shouldn't do it, and mummy said I shouldn't do it, and God said I shouldn't do it, and I'm going to get found out. That's how ego works. It's very painful. It's all made up, what it says. It's all nonsense. It's not based on reality at all. It's a misconception. So we've got to reprogram our minds. And this is intelligent. And we get it when it comes to the body. We're so intelligent when it comes to our body. We're so self-respectful when it comes to our body. There's no way we will, look at the nutrition value on the nutrition details on products now. We know it in detail, exactly what percent of fat, calories, cholesterol. We'll know exactly. And if you go and eat sugar by accident, you don't want to kill yourself. Oh, I'm a bad person, I ate sugar. You quickly apply the antidote. So it's self-respect. That's the attitude here with purification. It's like self-respect and realizing that we're the boss, not waiting for someone to get you off the hook, which is what forgiveness is. This is a really big, interesting point. Forgiveness is a massive word. We should look at the evolution of that. I'm not being rude, but look at the evolution of that. It's just philosophically. That's come from Christianity. It's an amazing concept. But have a look at the logic of it. Because by definition, when I confess to God, and I was a Catholic, God is my boss. He made me. So I'm going against his will. So I have to confess to God. And then I beg God to forgive me. This is how we all feel. It's good to get forgiveness. If I'm mean to my boyfriend, it is very important I ask forgiveness. It's true, I must. But we think forgiveness is what purifies us. Now I'm off the hook, we say. I'm okay now. My boyfriend keeps, I keep bad mouthing him every day. I ring him up. I'm so sorry, darling. I'm so sorry. And listen to this. This is when we misuse forgiveness. I'm feeling guilty, and I say, I'm so sorry, honey. I'm really so sorry. I didn't mean to bad mouth you. And I do it every day. And all I'm wanting is him to say, it's all right, Robina, I still love you. And I go, phew, I'm off the hook again. And I never do anything about it. That's useless. That's childish. And that's where I'm not misunderstanding I'm not being rude about the Christian teachings. That's the view, because God is the boss. You must get him to forgive you, but not here. Buddha he would forgive you. He's a nice person, but it's got nothing to do with it. It's like your doctor forgiving you for smoking. How will that help me stop getting cancer? Not at all. It's ridiculous. You have got to do something about it. Of course your doctor will forgive you. She's nice. Doesn't fix your cancer. You deciding you're sick or suffering, you relying on your doctor, you purifying by taking decent medicine, and then crucially, the fourth step, vowing to stop cigarette smoking from now on. That's purification. It's intelligent. We do it like a religious practice, ringing our bells and looking holy, never think about it properly, or we get overwhelmed by guilt. So the first one, regret, we don't even understand it properly. When I start to hear some of the things we say, it's very fascinating. One of the commonest mistakes we make was regret, because we really can't hear it properly. So what is regret? Okay, what is regret? What is it? Use the cigarette analogy. I smoked cigarettes. I began when I was 13. I was in love with Jimmy Dean, absolutely worshipped Jimmy Dean. Not only did I call myself Judy, who was his girlfriend in Rebel Without a Cause, but I identify with being Jimmy Dean. I cut my hair short for the first time. I stole my mother's Garrick cigarettes and was standing in front of the mirror trying to replicate how Jimmy Dean looked. I was not only wanted to be his girlfriend, I wanted to be him. My immersion was total. I began smoking then to look like Jimmy Dean, I'll never forget. And I went skating. I lied to my mother and went skating when I was about 13 and called myself Judy. And I thought I was ugly with my glasses. So I took my glasses off, but I can't see a thing. And I can't skate either. So I tried to con these boys, it was completely pathetic. And I got caught. I was very naughty. I was completely obsessed with Jimmy Dean. I can't tell you. I even now think of him. I see his pictures and I faint. I just love Jimmy Dean. My nieces love Jimmy Dean and they're like 20, Anyway, what was I talking about? I forgot.
We were talking about regret.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I didn't know back then when I was 13 in 1910 or something. I didn't know that cigarettes would cause you cancer. I had no idea. So then when I smoked when I was really berserk, living in London. I just shouldn't talk too many stories, wasting time. Never mind. When I was obsessed with Miles Davis, I get very obsessed, very obsessive. I was completely worshipped the ground that Miles Davis walked on when I met him. I met Miles Davis when I was 15 at school. And I just absolutely in love with Miles Davis. Couldn't believe it. I haven't seen him before. So I was in 69 when I was in London and I heard he was coming. Well, I had to go on speed to get thin because I wanted to be thin for Miles, right? I went on about 80 milligrams of speed a day, as well as my 80 Marlboros a day. I didn't know that I could get cancer when I was being so foolish, did I? I'm looking at Jamie. He always laughs. He says I'm funny. No one else is laughing. Jamie's in tears. I have to calm my mind down, okay? So anyway, when I was in love with Miles Davis, that was when I was in London, I was on speed, 80 milligrams a day and 80 Marlboros a day. I didn't know about lungs. I had no idea about lungs. So then later I discover that I could get cancer. So of course I would go, oh my God, what an idiot. I can't believe I didn't know I would hurt myself. I didn't realize I was harming myself. That's what regret is. It's a kind attitude out of your foolishness. Whereas some people say, but how can I regret it? Because I didn't know any better. That's like saying I shouldn't have done it. Well, shouldn't have done it is meaningless. It's anger. That's useless. Not shouldn't have. You go, oh, what a fool. I didn't realize what a fool I was. So it's kind of like humble. And I didn't realize I was harming myself. That's just the analogy. Well, I didn't realize when I cheated on my boyfriend and had an abortion and did this and did that and whatever, that I was harming myself, that I was doing actions that harm myself. So regret's a wholesome attitude, but also it's really courageous because instead of blaming others, or instead of guilt, or instead of denial, there are three main things these days. And our normal ego is three main responses we have. Imagine when you've eaten poison and someone points it out. And the first thing you say is, oh, I ate poison. I'm such a bad person. Meanwhile, you're dying. How foolish. Or who put poison in my dinner? And you're determined to blame somebody or it's like trying to sue Marlboro and you're smoking out of your throat because you're ruined. You have got a hole in your throat while you're still smoking your Marlboros, isn't it? And you're trying to sue Marlboro. I'm very happy for you. Hope you get your money. But what good does it do? Doesn't help you. All right, people, are we communicating here? I got to calm down. I'm losing the plot a bit. Which is that blood I lost. Look at me, my arm. Okay, the third one we have is even more ridiculous. Robina, there's poison in your dinner. And I'll say, there is not. I did not eat poison. So we have guilt, blame, and denial. I mean, we are just plain idiots, okay? This one is accountability. It's like grown up. And actually, that's what I find with karma. We think karma is so heavy in our culture. But actually, I know that was the revelation to me. The one word in that 1 month of intensive teachings of 12 hours a day with Lama Zopa teaching, the one word that rang a bell for me was the word karma. Then that's been the thing for me that's been so profound, a profound shift to my mind, because it means I'm responsible and it's grown up and it's self-confident, So purification is such a powerful method. Given that, so you take the view, your hypothesis that your mind goes back and back, and every millisecond of what I think and do and say gets planted in my mind. And I don't want to ripen suffering. I'm sick of suffering. I know that. That's a fact. So of course I'm going to regret from the depths of my heart, my foolish actions. But you speak to yourself. You don't just say, oh, I regret it. You say, because why, Robina? You're talking to yourself, because I do not want further suffering. It's kind to yourself, you know. Second step, well, whom can I turn to? Where's the doctor? So here we're talking Buddha. In this context, is Buddha. It could be Jesus for you. It's up to you. And this particular way we do it, this is coming from the Vajrayana, we visualize the Buddha as Vajrasattva, which is a particular aspect of the Buddha in the Bodhisattva form, not the monk form like this one, but another aspect of the Buddha. The oh, hello, Kim. There's a big noise with Kim, Alwyn. Mute yourself, Kim. Mute yourself, Kim. Kimmy, can you hear me?
I'm trying. I'll do it right now. Sorry, Robina.
Oh, don't worry, darling. It's okay. It's fine. You're right. So anyway, then you the next step, you rely upon the Buddha, and so you visualize the Buddha above. Then the second step is reliance. So you imagine being delighted you've got a Buddha, delighted you've got a doctor. We can say a refuge prayer, but sometimes for me it's so important to make it real. You know, I'm so happy I've found a doctor, the Buddha. Who is the doctor I've chosen? And the reason you go to a doctor, this is important too. You don't just go to a doctor because they're cute, because you think he's handsome. You go to a doctor because you want their medicine. Two reasons: you've checked on their qualities, and you want curative or preventative. Either way, that's why you go to a doctor. So you're delighted you've got a doctor to rely upon. Well, the second part of this second step, reliance, is actually where you now have compassion for those you've harmed. First one is compassion for yourself, if you like. The lamas don't call it that, but we can call it that. And the second one is compassion. Now you have compassion for others, all those you've harmed, the baby I aborted. First is like, I regret these actions because I don't want for suffering. I'm sick of suffering. Now I regret for the baby, for the people, for the boyfriend I cheated on, for the ants I killed, whatever. For the people I stole from, for the government whose taxes I didn't pay, whoever. The things you've done that have harmed others. You have compassion. I must purify for their sake. Then the third step, you take the remedy. And here in this framework, in this context, this practice, it's a meditation. I mean, this one's called the antidote. You apply the antidote, you know, to the poison. It's pretty clear. So this generally speaking, this third step, the antidote, you can do anything. I mean, if you're regretting lying, so during your day, you make sure you tell the truth. That's the antidote. If you're regretting killing, you try to save lives. You try to help people. That's the antidote to killing. But the particular practice in this third step, the remedy that all the lamas praise as being really the most powerful, the most potent medicine, is the visualization of the Buddha and the recitation of mantra. So that's a whole discussion. We've got to talk, why is that powerful, you know? Let's just take that as a given here in this 60-minute talk. So the third step, you visualize the Buddha. We did it one time. Didn't we do it one time? I thought we did it one time. Well, never mind. We'll do it again. Not today. Just talk about it. So the third one, you visualize, you know, you're using your mind. This is very interesting. We often say, well, how on earth can we saying a Sanskrit syllables and visualizing light coming and visualizing all the yucky negative karma leaving my body like yucky smoke? We think it's like a fantasy, you know, because we don't value the mind. But the more we understand karma, this itself is a very powerful point. The more we understand what karma means is that everything you do with your mind counts. We actually, in our world, actually don't think that what goes on in the mind counts. Lama Zopa said, and it sounds quite shocking, the vast majority of all humans on this planet have absolutely no idea that what goes on in their mind plays any role at all in their lives. Okay, when it comes to, playing the piano and learning theory, which is your mind, and learning computer science, which is your mind, and learning math and learning cake recipes with your mind does count. If you have a weird idea in your mind, you won't get a cake. But when it comes to emotions, when it comes to happiness, when it comes to suffering, that's what Lama Zopa meant. We have no idea that our thoughts play a role. This is quite schizophrenic. I mean, I'm really serious here. I mean, this is a serious disconnect that we actually don't realize that our thoughts and feelings play any role in our happiness and suffering. That's really quite stupendous to think about that. Whereas the Buddha's exact opposite. And that's the basis of all Buddhist practice, that view that everything that goes on in the mind not only counts, but is the creator of the entire universe, long-term view, you know. So everything, so mind totally counts. So this one then of visualizing is just your mind being very creative. You visualize the Buddha above you. You visualize nectar filling you. You visualize all the negative karmic imprints of all the actions of your body, for example, being driven out by this nectar and leaving all through your lower orifices and just being into space. we go, that's just fantasy. How can that help? Because we don't value the mind. But every thought counts. Every thought counts. So powerfully imagining, wanting to purify your crazy own mind and your habits and your delusions is itself just that thought is powerful. It counteracts the other thoughts. When we understand the mind, when we understand the power of the mind from the Buddhist perspective, then purification makes complete sense, So you visualize purifying body, speech, mind, the different visualizations and the recitation of the mantra. Then the fourth step, as Pavan Rinpoche says, is the most important. The 4 R's: resolve, the determination to change. So you don't lie to yourself and say, I'll never badmouth my boyfriend again if it's your favorite habit. So you give yourself a timeline. And if you take these steps seriously, then it's your mind engaging in this process. It's your mind wanting you to stop suffering because you've got some self-respect, and it's you having compassion and you having the courage to imagine purifying your mind because you're sick of suffering, and then you making a decision to change. Guess what will happen? You'll change. It's kind of not rocket science, but we have so little confidence in ourselves and so little confidence, so little belief or confidence in our mind, the power of the mind, So purification is incredible practice. As Lama Zopa says, we're insane not to do it every day. And we should be happy to do it. We should be sad not to do it. And that's why for me, when I do it, I don't use any of the text. Once you get these 4 steps clear, you're talking yourself through this process. It's completely you dealing with yourself, you having self-respect and confidence and courage, And then as Lama Yeshe says, you go to bed with a happy mind. So any questions? 1/4 hour left. Any questions? Nothing.
I don't have anything in the chat, Venerable.
Okay. I was also in love with Billie Holiday, just to show I'm equal, girls and boys. I was totally in love with Billie Holiday. In fact, Billie Holiday, I never heard of. My mother was a classical musician, and she wouldn't let us listen to rock and roll. We tried to say we liked Elvis, and she nearly fainted, So we weren't allowed to listen to Elvis. We had this old-fashioned big recording with a thing on it. And then when I went to school, I was about 14, I think, 15. And one girl's father was I went to this posh convent. One girl's father was the local radio station manager, and he was selling off all his records. So I saw this 7-inch LP, and it said Billie Holiday. It was pink, and it said Billie Holiday. I remember thinking, I wonder who he is, but I bought it. And then I bought Miles Davis, Sketches of Spain. That was the beginning of my opening my mind to the world, to American culture.
And Robin, I think Macaw has her hand raised.
I'm very happy. I can go back to the topic. I'll be serious again. Come on. Where are you? Who's asking me a question? Who's asking me, Charmaine?
Macaw has her hand raised. Did you have a question for Venerable Robina? Macaw. M-A-K-A.
Where are you, darling? Talk to me. I can't see you. I can't see her.
Macaw, do you want to ask Venerable Robina a question? Your hand's raised.
Talk to me, sweetheart. You ask it then, Charmaine.
I don't know what it is. She just raised her hand.
I can't see her. Is there somebody else while she's sorting herself out?
Can you hear me now?
Where are you, darling?
You can hear me, right?
I can hear your voice. So I can't see you, but I'm hearing you and I'm listening, sweetheart. So talk to me.
Okay, so my question is sort of historical. It seems like the world today in the 21st century, like there's sort of an excess of samsara.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're very, very good at it. We're brilliant at it. Absolutely right.
Generations, we're getting better at samsara over the generations.
That's right.
So I'm just curious. I'm thinking in the context of 2,500 years ago, the Buddha's world, and these are the teachings that he came out with, and the teachings are very sort of deep and like on a serious level. Like this is what we need in the 21st century because there's so much samsara. And I'm just kind of curious, like how these instructions and these teachings sort of fit into the context of that world 2,500 years ago, because he was in India and there was already like the notion of karma in the Hindu religion or the Brahmins or whatever was going on. So I don't know. It's just either he had a lot of foresight he was
Well,
omniscient.
I think it's a good point you're making, but I think the way to answer that, the Buddhist expertise, and this is the point that we don't really get even in our modern culture, because we have a very different view of what the mind is. We talk about neuroscience and things, and we talk about all the external conditions that trigger things in the mind. But when we understand the Buddhist expertise is the actual cognitive process itself. And that has never changed since beginningless time. The Buddha's got this model of the mind that fits any living being, including monkeys and dogs and ants and other beings that he would assert exist that aren't even human or animals. That it's the model of the mind of the entire universe. So that is, it can be 50 million years old or a day old. If it's true, if it's valid, then who cares what century it's in? Attachment is attachment is attachment. Aversion is aversion. Jealousy is jealousy. And if we go back in history, we're going to recognize those. If we take this model and you read any time of history and you see dogs and monkeys, you'll recognize it. So this is his model of the mind. And where does he get it from? From his own internal observation of his own mind itself. That was the expertise of the Indians even before him. They're the ones who created this amazing psychological skill called single-pointed concentration. This is the expertise of the mind in Buddhism and the Indians before that doesn't exist in our world. We think we've just invented the mind because we've discovered the brain. But they've been talking about the mind for this is 2,500 years ago. So that's if what he saw then was called attachment, ego grasping. If you study Buddhist psychology and philosophy in the monastic university system, like the Tibetans do, and you read all the literature, you're going to unpack it and make it and put it in 21st century language. It's as modern as today, because if it's valid, it doesn't matter how old it is. If it's not valid, then it's just culture and it's rubbish. But if it's real experience, then no matter what culture it is, it doesn't matter. It's true. That's what we've got to find out. Do you see my point? Or not?
I see your point, and as
Where's
I'm
the problem?
contemplating this, I'm thinking that the Buddha was even more wonderful than I thought before. If he
Well, that's
had
good.
no, yeah. Anyways,
Yeah,
thank you.
I mean, the fact, yeah, that's very good. That's an interesting take on it. I'm very fascinated by that. So keep looking, girl. I mean, yeah, keep working on it. No, I understand your point. It's very nice, actually. I hadn't thought of it like that. That's it? More to say?
I'll talk to you later.
Oh, good. You do that.
Okay,
Who else?
thanks.
Good, darling. What else, people? Nobody else? Charmaine? Who? Larry. Talk to me, Larry. Okay, sweetheart. Yes.
My question is about the preliminary practices, how the Vajrasattva mantra as a part of the preliminary practices.
Yes.
There are like 100,000 mantras. Isn't that just an exercise in speech? I mean, you can just say that without feeling anything, or 100,000 frustrations. You can just do that. It's just a physical exercise. If it's just are some just purifications of body, or some purifications of mind, another one's a purification of speech. How do they all come together, as a preliminary practice? I don't know if I'm asking this right or not.
I don't quite understand the question, Larry. I want to understand you. So can you give it to me in a different way, please? What's the actual, I can't get the essence of your question, darling.
If I'm doing the preliminary practices and it requires 100,000 frustrations and 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras.
Sure. So there's a particular practice that the practitioners have found is very good to help prime your mind and purify your mind, which will make it easy to remove the weeds from your mind so that you can grow the flowers and develop virtue and develop wisdom. That's the plan. So what's the question?
The question is, why can't they just be divided into three? The Vajrasattva as just the purification of speech, and the prostrations just the purification of body, and I don't know what else could be just.
But it is like that. So what are you suggesting? You could argue it is that way. That's why you would do prostrations, because we create negative karma with our bodies, so we need to use our bodies to purify, don't we? So one of the benefits of the prostrations is that. So then so is that?
Well, yeah, this thing that sometimes I can do like 1,000 prostrations or something. I can't do it now, but I used to. And then just do it, and it's just like exercise. Or I could just say,
okay, stop. Okay,
100,000 times.
So stop, Larry. So then you do 1,000 prostrations, and it's just like exercise. So what's your question about that?
The question is, how can that help purify the mind if you're just doing it?
Okay. How can it purify? Okay, now I understand your question. Thank you. Because that's up to your mind. If you just do a prostration, which looks like a very nice kind of, it looks like it's just physical, as you know, one of the first practices Lama Yeshe ever gave me, because he could see my mind very clearly, was, and he gave me prostrations and he said, good physical yoga, dear. And it's true, it is good physical yoga. You get very good pecs, you get good, good strong abdomen when you go up and down 100,000 times a full prostration, definitely. But that in itself is meaningless. It's what your mind does when you do it that gives it meaning, Larry.
All right, I see. Yes.
That's the point.
And the same with Vajrasattva. You can
Of course, let me say this though. This is where we really got to think about this. All the lamas will say, there are some practices we do that are so potent that you don't even need to have a good motivation. And so those practices are ones that involve a Buddha because of the power of enlightened beings. So, if we can imagine an enlightened being as a real thing, not just some abstract religious idea in the sky, it's inconceivable that we get such a powerful mind. So anything we do in relation to the Buddhas, even just saying the word Buddha, even just visualizing the Buddha, it leaves a powerful imprint in your mind, which means you'll meet the Buddha again, which means you stay connected. And so it's got power to it, enormous power. So this is why the third step in the Vajrasattva, in the purification practice, is visualizing. The most potent one of the third practice, the antidote, is to visualize the Buddha and say these Sanskrit mantras. So the mantra is said to be super powerful as well. Sanskrit is said to be a super powerful sound that purifies your mind and purifies your speech and purifies your body. So this is, we need to learn all this to see. So there's more that so I think I would suggest even saying a mantra without much motivation would bring some power. But just doing a physical exercise on the ground with no thought of the Buddha, there's no power in that. There's no virtue in that. Are we communicating that?
Yes, because the reason I ask is that I've been practicing for about 10 years. And at first, when I would do my mantras and do all of that, I really felt joy. I felt something out of it. But with the past year or so, it feels like sometimes when I'm doing it, I'm just reciting words.
Honey, that's because we get a bit bored. When we start, we're often in the honeymoon period and we're in love with our guru, and we're in love with the Buddha, we're in love with the practices. But after a while, we get bored because that's just the mind, So you just got to keep persevering. But that's what we've got to have some confidence in the logic of these practices, not just do them out of a nice feeling. That's why many of us give up. We've got to see some logic to it and understand how karma works. Then even when we're not feeling so excited, we'll keep doing it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand, yes. I
It's
understand
important. Well, that's the point. It's important because if we just follow our feelings, it's a bit like, because you fall in love with gardening and you love doing your gardening every day. Then one day you wake up, you can't be bothered doing your gardening. Who cares if you can't be bothered? When you know that gardening is sowing seeds and pulling out weeds, whether you're happy or not is incidental. If you understand karma like that, then you will want to abide by the laws of karma and you'll want to do your practice, even if you don't feel so excited. Because that's just a bonus to feel excited. You see my point?
I see.
Do you see?
I see. I understand. Yes.
We're so addicted in our culture to think that I'm not saying you're saying this, but we're so addicted in our culture to think that meditation is about having an experience. So if you have a joyful experience, I had a good meditation today. It's like saying I had a good day today because I felt good with the sky was nice when I did my gardening. That's hardly the issue. The issue is, did you pull out the weeds and did you grow the flowers? The long term is the result. The result is the point, not how we feel.
So it's okay if some sessions aren't as meaningful as others, or aren't as
what, darling? What, Larry? What?
It's okay if some sessions aren't as potent as others, or aren't as meaningful as others. Like.
No, I didn't say meaningful, Larry. I did not say meaningful. I'm talking about attachment making us feel good. That's just feelings, and that's not a criterion of a good meditation. Because you feel good doing your gardening is a bonus. The point of gardening is to pull out the weeds and grow the flowers. That'll happen whether you have a headache or feel happy. That's what I'm trying to say. We conflate attachment with thinking it's a good meditation. That's rubbish. That's why we give up. Many people give up practice because they stop feeling good. It's a bonus to feel good. It's helpful to feel good. It keeps us going. But we've got to realize the long-term benefit of what we're doing, Larry. Growing flowers and pulling out the weeds, baby. That's the point.
I just thought that I was losing the joyful part of the joyful effort. One of the perfections, joyful effort. Just sometimes it feels like I'm losing the joyful part of the
Most
joyful
of us
aspect.
are, honey child, until we have bliss, until we've got some shamatha, until we realize emptiness, it is going to be a struggle. That's why we've got to, that's why we need perseverance.
Perseverance, right?
I mean, when you see people like Lama Zopa who are laughing the whole time, no matter what happens, that's because they've got realizations, you know. So we just have to persevere till we get there. Then you can relax in your bliss, all right?
I see. Thank you.
Good. 2 more minutes, or 10 more minutes. I was late. So any more questions?
I have a question in the chat, Venerable.
Talk to me. Say what it is.
The question is, what if a person can't do the physical prostrations? Is there something
Oh,
that
darling, doesn't matter. Do your hands, do your mind, whatever we can do, you know. Whatever we can do, sweetheart. Absolutely. Don't visualize. My friends in prison holding these, like, you know, 2-inch by 2-inch cells with psychopaths on the bed an inch above their head. They can't do anything. It's all in their mind. They visualize. I mean, some of the meditations of my friends in prison, you can't believe their visualization. Super clear visualization, elaborate visualization, because they have no choice. They're lying on their bed. There's no choice, you know. So our mind is the one. If we can't do our body and speech, that's okay. The mind is the most powerful. Absolutely. What else? Nothing else, you people? Nobody? Come on, talk to me.
Hi, Robina. This is Dawn. I have a
Hello,
question.
Dawn. Petal,
Hi.
talk to me.
So I'm kind of I built a little shelf on the wall to begin with the bowls and the stupa and the Dharma and the Buddha, the image.
That shelf behind you, it's a bit high, isn't it? How? Oh, you're a tall girl, aren't you?
Like it's probably about here on me.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
That's-
it's just the angle of the computer, I think.
I see. Okay.
But I don't know if I can get a tanka of the Buddha, so I was wondering is it okay for me to paint a picture of like Shakyamuni Buddha?
Like to paint, absolutely. But I would really recommend you get really good advice from the best artists, because there's a very specific ways to do it that makes it very special. So absolutely, it's a wonderful idea. You should do that. We
I
can
have
email
some
me.
tanka books that are very
Okay, email me. We can discuss it.
okay.
Good, darling.
And then the bowls of water, I just wanted to know, is there a specific, should they all be the same type of bowl? And is there a certain?
You like what it makes you happy.
Okay.
Beautiful. I mean, because Tibetans used to have brass, they didn't have crystal and ceramics. We just assume a water bowl should be brass, but they get all moldy and ugly. Use whatever you like. It's a beautiful container, you know. Whatever you want, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful offering. Whatever you like.
And then, like, would that be a place on the wall for a picture of you? Like,
That's your business. Who you put there?
yeah. Okay.
Put Mickey Mouse there.
Okay. Thank you.
We can. I mean, if you have a teacher, yeah, you can put your Buddha and the teacher there together. You would certainly do that. Yes.
Okay. Thank
Good
you.
job. Okay. What else, Charmaine? We got
do
time.
you have any other questions in the chat, Venerable Robina?
No more. I'm being a bit crazy today. I'm sorry, I made you nervous. Come on, people, talk to me. Ming, have you got a question? Fernando, have you got a question?
Hi, Venerable Robina.
Hello,
How are-
man. Hello, sweetie pie. Talk to me.
I put a grenade in my garden,
What do you
and
mean a grenade, darling?
you know, you said you have to put a grenade in the garden to
What's a
get
grenade?
weeds.
Sweetie, what's a grenade?
You know,
Metaphor.
like you have to put a bomb in the garden to get rid of the weeds.
Oh, you could put an atomic bomb under your weeds. Okay, good. I'm very happy you did. Well done, girl.
But it was too big and it destroyed all the flowers.
What do you mean by that? Maybe be more practical. Tell me what's happening.
Maybe like instead of destroying the weeds,
Sweetheart,
it's
what
hard
do you
to
mean?
destroy the weeds.
Keep it simple for me. I want to understand you, Ming. Tell me what's going on.
Oh, I fired my my shrink.
Okay, that story. Okay, so good. And why is that bad? Why is
No,
that?
I kind of ghosted her. I don't know
What
if
do you
that's
mean
a
by
good
ghosting,
thing.
darling? Ming, can you keep it on the earth for me? I'm a very simple girl. Keep
Okay.
it practical and
I
simple.
kind of like ignored her and
That's
just
being rude. Well, that's not kind. You should be very professional and just simply say, thank you very much for all your kindness. I've learned so much from you, but no, I'm not coming back. Thank you very much. That's
okay, I'll do that.
respectful and professional.
Yeah, because I guess
That's not
nice.
helpful. That's
Yeah,
called
okay.
that's passive aggression, baby. It's another word for anger.
Yeah, I don't want to sow like, bad karma.
Oh,
So
just
I
be
think I'll
professional,
do that.
darling. Be
Yeah,
professional,
thanks. Awesome.
Good, darling. What else, people? Lois, Nancy, Matt, Doris. Come on, talk to me. Barbara. Doris, come on then. What are you going to say, Doris?
I want to know how your arm is.
Oh, my arm's fine. I'm being a
Okay.
drama queen. It's perfectly fine. It's a bit of a cut. Because as
Okay.
you're old, it cuts more easily because you're old. You remember you're old when your skin cuts because it's not like tough anymore.
Oh, I hear you. But it's an awfully big plaster.
I know, because it's all I could find in the minute because I was late for the class.
All right. I'm glad you're okay.
I'm perfectly fine, darling. What else, people? Chuck. Hello, Chuck. You've got a question?
Hi, Venerable. Yes, thank you. I struggle with practicing equanimity with those that have a different worldview than I do.
Oh, darling, join the universe. We all do.
Any suggestions?
So you mean you get mad at these idiot people who are conspiracy theorists and all that?
Thank you. We're communicating.
We are communicating, baby. I understand. So listen, Chuck, I mean, you know all the answers, but we'll just, for all of our sake, we'll say it. I think one way of putting it is this, Chuck. We are all obsessed with having an opinion, and I'm talking about us now. So why not practice recognizing what they're thinking, and then if you can't have compassion for them, because who do you think they're harming besides everybody else? They're completely polluting their own crazy minds, if you can see that. But the main one is just to protect ourselves, because the world is full of crazy people, and because we have full exposure all day, every day through iPads and phones and everything else, we're going to be bombarded, and if we don't protect ourselves, we'll go nuts, mate. So you just got to see it. And then maybe a good practice, forget the compassion for them, but look at how crazy they are, look at the delusions and go, thank you for showing me how ridiculous that is. And you just watch your own mind like a hawk. So you treat it as like a practice for yourself, as a learning. In other words, if you see a person who's walking around drunk, instead of criticizing them, you go, thank you for showing me how not to be. That's how I treat Mr. Trump. I hear all these crazy things. I forget about compassion, but I think, look at his mind. I see a craziness. I see paranoia. I see delusions. I see anger. I see lying. Let's just say they're true. I see that. And then I go, thank you for showing me how not to be. You treat it like a lesson for yourself, Chuck. Then you keep your mind stable. Then compassion will come one day. Don't worry about that. But if we start launching into it and getting angry, who do you think you're destroying, Chuck? This is the point. We've got to learn some kind of that's right. We forget that part. So see it as a learning for yourself. So my God, look at that. And thank you for showing me how not to be. Then it's a wake-up call for you, Chuck, because we've all got the same delusions. It's just a question of degree. That's all. Do you get my point? Then you stay sane, Chuck. Compassion will come one day, but don't worry about compassion. Forget even about equanimity. Just leave it there. Do you understand, darling?
You make it so simple.
Good, I'm happy. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks, sweetheart.
And Robina, I think Lois had a question.
Good, Lois. Talk to me, darling.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Hi.
Yes, Lois.
My question is really about karma. Karma confuses me.
Does it? Tell me
Understand
what you understand.
saying between the difference between regret and guilt.
I understand. Good point.
And-
Can you hear the difference or not?
But there was a past teaching several years ago where, if I understood it correctly, that you had said regarding karma that if you were an abuser in one lifetime, that you would become the abused in another lifetime.
I understand. Yes. So,
And so then I get confused with reward punishment.
oh, I see. But okay, I get your point now. I understand your point. But use another example. Has someone ever been kind to you in your life?
Sure.
Okay, that means because you have been kind to them in the past. So, but then if you analyze, you could argue that's reward, but think about the word reward and punishment. Does it not imply someone deciding to reward you and someone deciding to punish you? Doesn't it imply a person? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes.
I mean, when you smoke, if you eat sugar and you've got diabetes and you get sick, you don't think of it as punishment, do you? You just think you're foolish. Well, no one's punishing you and no one's rewarding you. Buddha says it's a natural law that by being kind and loving and generous, that produces one, the habit for you to keep doing it, but two, because you did it to other people, it will happen back to you. It's a natural law, nothing to do with any other person judging us. That's the usual view we have. There's someone out there judging us. There's no view like that in Buddhism. It's a natural, think of it as a natural law that if you smoke, you might get cancer. If you eat sugar, you might get diabetes. It's not punishment. It's a natural law. That's the view about karma. So that makes us accountable and grown up and responsible. Do you understand my point, darling?
Yeah, it's so hard for it's easy for me to understand what the good things in life. If I'm kind, that
Right.
I will, if I'm kind to someone, I will receive kindness.
Why is it hard for you to think about it when it comes to the bad? Why is it hard for you?
What?
Why? Yeah.
The part that really troubled me is, I can't stand anything to happen to children, and the fact that children can be sexually abused by their father or
I
whatever.
understand. But a child can also have a beautiful, kind father. So you can handle one, but not the other.
Right.
Well, I suppose I understand your point, but if we analyze carefully what's happening, what you're really saying is you like the idea that someone has got a kind father, but you simply don't like the idea of a bad father. So that's called attachment and anger.
Okay, gotcha.
It's a natural law. If you know that one seed will bring a weed or a flower, it's not punishment, it's not reward. You keep thinking it's a natural law, then there's no blame involved. And then you have compassion for yourself. And then, Lois, you're going to have compassion for everybody.
Okay.
We all realize we produce ourselves, all our happy experiences and all our suffering. When you continually include both, then you start to give it more equality. You understand? And you realize it's a natural law. And I know your point, and it's very common, but if you think it through logically, it makes you more brave.
Well, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Good, Lois. Thank you so much. Maybe we can finish now then. I've made up my lost time. All right, people? You're all very quiet. Everyone's okay? 1 hour of helpful information.
We love you, Venerable Robina.
Oh, good. I'm very happy about that. Good. And even if you don't, that's okay too. So thank you, darlings. Jung Chub, Sem Chog Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam, Ke Yu Chig, Ke Pa Nyam Pa Me Pa Yang Gong Ne Gong Du, Pel Ba Shog. May compassion grow and grow and grow in the hearts of all. And may we never give up. People never give up, okay? Never give up, okay? My policy is even if you're drowning, stay perky, because you just might find a method to get out and help others. All right? Thank you, darlings.